Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. I'm very happy to have you join us. And before we start off with today's show, I have this very important disclaimer, and that is by watching our videos, you agree and understand that the information provided by our experts and attorneys, including comments and replies from users, is not legal advice. Use of information is at your own risk. Thank you so much, folks out there, for joining us. We are streaming live right now on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and on X. So please feel free to join us, by commenting, especially with regard to our topic of today. And before I tell you who's going to join us, you can also join us on call by dialing this number 425-436-6335, and the access code is 988-888. And once you're in, you just say hello, we will be able to hear you. So, folks, today's topic of discussion is Trump 2025. Who's on his new team and what does it mean for America? I know there has been a lot of discussions and news on this. Every day you hear something about Trump's team, and we are all excited to know what's going to happen once Trump returns to office. And, I'm very, very excited because today we have a truly distinguished guest joining us, someone whose name resonates in the field of business and immigration worldwide, by the way. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it is an absolute honor to introduce Charles Kuck. Thank you so much, Charles, for joining us. And
Nipasa,
Charles,
thank you very much for having me.
thank you so much, Charles. This is probably our second time, and I'm very excited that we're going to have this discussion today.
Well, I'm looking forward to it because nothing gets the blood going more than talking about Donald Trump.
I know passion comes running in, right? Both ways. So, Charles, folks out there, Charles is a globally recognized business and investor immigration attorney and a fierce advocate for sensible immigration reform. So, I'm sure it's going to be awesome if you could join us, especially with your questions. You can comment or call us. And, Charles, maybe tell us what's going on with you these days.
Well, with me, we're in the United States. We're getting ready for Christmas, hence your Christmas theme, and it's of course a great time to be alive. And I'm looking forward to my grandchildren coming to my farm this weekend and having just a wonderful and joyous time.
Absolutely. I'm sure. Will you be playing Santa?
No, I'm not big enough to play Santa. I don't want to ever get big enough to play Santa. But if my checkbook counts, yes, then I'm playing Santa. It just depends on how you approach it.
Works. It works. It works. I'm sure it's going to be very exciting. And here's wishing you and your lovely family a happy Christmas season, happy holidays, a good time in your farm. And I'm sure it's going to be awesome with you.
Thank you. It's going to be a good time. But we have to get back to the topic at hand, don't we?
Yes. So,
you probably
what
are
can
not aware,
folks out there
Nipasa,
expect?
you're
Yeah.
probably not aware that even though Trump doesn't become president until January 20th, I believe,
Yes.
he's already basically acting like the president. And we literally are in our very first, right now as we speak, the very first Trump crisis of his second term, in that he's basically telling Congress to shut the government down today at midnight. There's
Yes.
literally 2 votes that have failed. President Musk has put his imprimatur on some items here. So as co-president, Donald Trump and him are deciding, even before he's president, what's going to happen to America. And if this little taste of chaos is enough for you, we can jump right into the immigration stuff, because chaos will rule supreme for the next 4 years.
So, yes, this shutting down of the government, is it true? What's going to happen? So, it's like the transition period or?
No, well, it's really interesting. The reason it's shutting down is because the government doesn't have a budget. So no budget is passed, and there's no budget. The government just stops working. Now, the interesting thing, part of that, Nipasa, is that the Immigration Service, USCIS, is actually not funded by the budget. So USCIS keeps operating, but ICE is funded by the budget, which is the immigration enforcement side. The consulates are funded by the budget. They shut down. And at midnight tonight, the budget is over. So what I heard literally just before coming on the air, that they're trying to consider a plan C, since plan A and B have failed. Plan C will be a series of votes on a series of proposals that will ultimately lead to the government not shutting down. But Republicans who control the House, and in our system, the House controls the budget. All budget bills have to come out of the House. Republicans only have an 8-seat majority, and they have about 35 members who are basically insane. And they basically love shutting down the government's the greatest thing. They hate the government. Isn't that ironic? They became so they could hate the government and shut it down. So they need Democrats to support the bill. But if Democrats, look, if you want us to support the bill, you gotta give us some cheese. You gotta do something for us. And that was the very first bill that President Musk came down and said, no, this is terrible. This is terrible. We can't do this. And so Democrats are now sitting on the sidelines going, not really our problem. We don't have enough votes to pass our bill. What are you going to do? So it's literally a chaos show right now, Nipasa. If it wasn't so tragic, it would be funny.
It would. I know, it's crazy. I think we can only keep guessing until it really happens. So let's see what's going to happen after midnight tonight.
I'm sure these things never happen in India. I'm sure it's nothing like this.
No, never heard of anything as such anywhere, actually. All right. So let's go on. Let's go on to our topic. And I have a few questions. So let's dive right into our first one. So,
Okay.
given the Trump administration's historical stance of immigration, how do you foresee the key changes or continuations in immigration policy if he returns to power after January 20th?
Well, it's interesting. I've seen a lot of stuff on a lot of websites, particularly from India, about how Elon Musk is going to temper the hawkish nativist movement within the Trump administration. And to that, I say, you're delusional. President Trump said that his primary key advisor on immigration is a man named Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller is the grandson of Holocaust survivors, Jewish, and truly hates immigrants. The irony doesn't escape anybody. He was the principal architect of all of the anti-immigrant nativist movement in the first term, and his position has been elevated into the second term. And people will say, well, they're only going to go after illegals. It's just the undocumented people. That literally is not true. There are already laws allowing Trump to deport people. They just need money to do it. What was evident in the first term will become more evident in the second term. The lowest levels of legal immigration that we had since 1789 were during the Trump years. Why? Because they're going to do certain things to, one, slow down every process. Now, Biden has been no jewel. He's been no great immigration god to anybody. He's done a crappy job as far as I'm concerned. But Trump will intentionally destroy the system. So I'll give you a great example. One of the things that Biden did fix was the naturalization process. People had green cards, become citizens. Under Trump, those were taking about 2 to 3 years. The last couple of years under Biden, it's been taking 4 to 8 months, much quicker to become a citizen. Green cards. The Trump administration is the administration that did not use all of the available immigrant visas that I had to sue them on back in 2020. They also are the ones that proposed terrible H-1B regulations that I had to sue them on in 2018 and 2019. All of those things are coming back, except this time, the people that are in charge have learned their lesson. Everybody under Trump previously were newbies. They were new people. They really weren't ever in government. They didn't know how the mechanisms of government worked. They've now had 8 years to learn, and they now know. So starting with Stephen Miller, who is basically the number 3 or 4 guy in the White House, and then followed behind him on the enforcement side is a guy named Tom Homan. Tom Homan used to be the head of, well, he wasn't even head of ICE. He worked at ICE, but he's been a Fox News contributor on immigration for years now. And he portrays this kind of tough guy. Yeah, you lawyers, we're going to arrest you for helping immigrants. Really a tough guy kind of thing. But actually, it's the people below them They're going to make a difference. So the key changes, one, we will see things like a slowdown in immigrant visas, I-140s, for example, slower processing. We will see slower appointment times at the consulates. We will see tougher adjudication standards on a lot of different applications. And we will see things like the H-1B visa. We anticipate that sometime in the first year or so, the Trump administration will propose a new H-1B regulation on wages and say that, yes, there's a lottery, but this lottery will be on the wages. Whoever is getting paid the most will get the H-1B visa, as opposed to just what we have this next year, just a sheer lottery, basically by individual, not by employer anymore. So all of those things, and that's kind of the 35,000 foot view, but we can go into a lot more detail as we talk about this today.
For sure. I mean, I hear about that. We had a few discussions, and I mean, if people with who are going to be paid most wages are going to be preferred, then I'm sure a lot of small businesses, startup companies are going to suffer on that. You
Nonprofits,
know,
hospitals,
yes.
it would be disastrous. But Elon Musk would get all of his people that he wants to hire. The irony here is that Musk is an immigrant, right? That's the ultimate irony here. And in fact, he appears to have been undocumented for a period of time after he was from a student visa before he got an H-1B. And when he was getting his H-1B back in the 90s, it was much easier to get an H. There was a lot more H-1Bs available. So the irony doesn't escape anybody, but here's a guy that's kind of a nativist that started out as an immigrant. It's something we actually see quite often, which is kind of shocking. Close the door behind me kind of people. So go ahead, ask some more questions. We got some great questions here. I know you've got a lot more you want to ask me. We can even talk about the individuals that we know will be running things besides the guys in the White House.
Yes, absolutely. And you were talking about Stephen Miller, so I think I want to ask about him. When you talk about immigration reforms and the executive actions, particularly concerning asylum policies and refugee camps. What would you like to say about that?
Well, I have just briefly about that. Biden this last month, this November, appears to have been the lowest number of people that came to our border illegally in about 10 years. So even lower than when Donald Trump was president. These are, of course, Biden policies. The thing that's helping is that Republicans are no longer saying, the border's open! The border is open! They go on Fox, the border is open! Well, if you've got Congressman or Trump yelling that, you know where that plays on the news? Guatemala, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Colombia, China. Oh, the border's open. They said it was open. I'm going to come to the border. Since they stopped talking about it, the numbers go down. How ironic is that? Biden had just enacted this last week some asylum reforms that will make getting asylum, the initial interview of asylum, much harder than it has been, and allow for asylum officers to reject people faster. That doesn't mean that they will. I mean, one thing you have to understand about asylum, people coming to the border, is that desperation drives a lot of people. There's a lot of desperation that goes on there. And you can't build walls high enough. You can't erect barriers big enough to stop desperate people. You just can't. What you could do is have a legal immigration system that paves way for them to come, which, of course, we don't have. So the reform, now Trump wants to put back into place something called MPP. MPP is called Remain in Mexico. Let's say somebody from India says, I'm going to, they're going to kill me in India. I'm going to come to the United States. I'll go to the border, go to Mexico, go to the border. What MPP says, you're going to wait in Mexico until we have time to talk to you. Well, you know who that was great for? The Mexican cartels. Mexican cartels would rape, kidnap, extort, charge people for that. Their cartels were in seventh heaven under MPP. But MPP didn't stop people from coming, because one of the weird things that MPP did was that if you came in and were tossed back, that did not count as an illegal entry. So the bars that are in our laws that then punish you for doing that were gone. It literally was the least effective program ever created for the border, besides the fact it's probably illegal and in fact was stopped one time by a judge. So these asylum things that you see at the border, that's probably history at this point. The numbers are now equalized. They're fine. More people come in by appointment to apply for asylum than come illegally. So, and I know, and it upset a lot of people that were legal here, justifiably. People that were been here for 10 years, no papers, and people were coming in right now and applying for getting a work permit. Well, it doesn't sound fair, but that's what the law is, right? So if you do apply for asylum, you do get a work permit. It doesn't put you in front of the line, though. The line is still what the line is. And even if you get asylum, even if you get approved, which only 30% of people do, the reality is you have years before you're going to become a permanent resident. So unfortunately, there was a lot of misinformation. It caused a lot of bad feelings. Immigrant groups cannot afford to fight each other. They need to fight together to make the pie bigger rather than fight over one piece of pie. And hopefully we can come to that kind of understanding this year, because it's going to be really important under the Trump administration.
I hope so. I hope so. And talking about, border security, you were saying, do you think, that the Trump administration, in terms of border security and immigration enforcement, what do you think is going to look like? Especially with
It's going to be
Homan, coming into force, the border czar.
it's going to look really ugly. The image that people have of America, the shining city on the hill, as Reagan talked about, the Statue of Liberty, we might as well burn all that down, because they're coming for people. Now, you have to ask, how are they going to identify bad guys, undocumented? How are they going to do that? Nipasa, there's really only one way to do that, and is to look at you. And they'll say, "Oh, Nipasa, show me your papers." Like we live in Germany in 1933 or something. Now, what they will do is they will actually begin with the easy stuff. So ICE, which is the enforcement part of immigration in the United States, Immigration Customs Enforcement, they're inherently lazy. All right. They're not, in order to go find people, they're not going to drive buses through trailer parks looking for Mexicans. They're going to go after first people with criminal convictions. Now, here's the thing that is truly ironic. If you ask an American, just an average American who voted for Trump, how many illegal aliens with criminal convictions do you think there are? They will tell you, and there's a poll that said this, like 4 million. There's 60,000. There's 60,000. Now, there's about 300,000 people that do have criminal convictions that actually have orders of deportation that are not in custody because they cannot be deported. Their country refused to take them. Now, one thing that Trump did that was good last term, that no other president really did, he basically threatened countries. If they didn't take the people that we wanted to deport back to them, he would start a trade war. He would just put sanctions on them. He would put tariffs on them. He would cut off aid. And miraculously, some of these countries actually took people back. China was one of them. China doesn't take anybody back. Cuba is another one. Israel doesn't take Palestinians back. There's all over the world that people don't go back. But what's the purpose of detaining them? You can't deport them. So the next group of people are those that are simply have removal orders. There are over 1.5 million people in the United States, as far as the government understands, that actually have deep final orders. They've had the due process. They got denied, but they don't know where they are. So they're going to have to put resources towards literally finding them. Now, are they findable? Of course. ICE is already using AI to do that. But ICE is only funded to deport at the most 400,000 people a year. It just was announced that last year, Biden deported more people in 2024, fiscal year 2024, than Trump ever did in any year. So Biden is right after Obama in deporting people. Trump wants to get up there and do that. And they talk about deporting 8 million, 9 million, 10. That's completely unrealistic. It's not going to happen. But what they will be doing is scaring people. They will drive undocumented further underground. And if you think that all undocumented are Mexicans, you're sadly mistaken. Do you know how many Indian nationals that I know that are undocumented? I probably have a couple thousand that are my clients that are undocumented Indians. There's probably close to 500,000 undocumented Indians in the United States. So it's not just a Latino problem or a Central American or Latin American problem. It's a worldwide problem that we have. So I see this very aggressive type of work. Now, on the flip side, so Homan's going to do that. That's kind of his bailiwick. ICE
Mhm.
is going to also do worksite enforcement, and for H-1Bs, lots of what's called FDNS, or fraud detection national security visits to H-1B visa holders. They're asking for more money in the bill that will likely pass in April or May or March, something like that, to get more officers to do worksite visits for H-1Bs.
Mhm.
ICE will also be doing they don't really do random audits. What ICE did last time, and they'll do again, they have a phone number. And they say, look, if you are an American and you think you see undocumented workers at a company, call us. And under Trump, they had lists they never even could get to. The Biden administration did no worksite enforcement, none. There was no new worksite enforcement. So we'll see that. But what's going to happen, a lot of these people that own these businesses that employ undocumented workers, typically working on fake documents, they voted for Trump. So when ICE starts going after these businesses who are Trump voters, you're going to start hearing weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth, biblical level complaining. And what you will see is ICE will back off because Trump doesn't want to hurt his friends. I would love to see, though, an employer site visit to SpaceX. It would be kind of cool. Or Tesla plant. So this is undocumented workers going to be under pressure. This is nothing. This will be nothing like the Trump years, the Obama year. Obama's were worse, honestly. The first 4 years of Obama were terrible. We'll see. We'll approach it, but we won't get there. Mostly because it's a very different world we live in than even just 10 years ago, or 12 years ago, or 14 years ago when Obama was president. So it's gonna be crazy, and a lot of innocent people will get caught up, including a lot of Indian nationals.
So, do you think, like, because Biden, during Biden, it was not so strict with regard to, I mean, in the borders, right? So many people could come in, and
Well,
maybe
that's
after
not
they
true.
came
See
in.
that, Nipasa, I'm going to cut you off because that's literally not true. There
Okay.
is a perception here that Biden let anybody in. You know what Biden did?
Of course not.
Biden followed the law. He followed the law. 8 USC 208. Anyone who comes to a port of entry is allowed to apply for asylum. Period.
Mhm.
End of story. It's the law. The law was the problem, not Biden. It's
Not
Trump
mine.
that was violating the law. So Biden did his best to follow the law and then change policy and regulation so he could still be within the law and try to stem the flow. But Biden didn't open the borders. They didn't say come
Yeah,
in. And,
yeah,
in
he
fact,
didn't.
it was, as I said, Republicans said the borders are open now. Biden's president, and that just didn't happen.
It didn't. It didn't. Right. But yeah, thank you so much. I mean, that was very, very intense, but we have so much to cover. So let's go on to
Sorry.
our next. No, it's cool.
Now you know
It's
when I
cool.
need a
It's good
vacation for Christmas.
to Well, I do hope we end with good things and good notes so that people can enjoy their holidays at least.
I hope so. But
I hope so.
there's a lot of people. Let's talk just briefly, if you don't mind, about the people that
Yeah.
will be running immigration.
Mhm.
So they've been identified now. There's two former Trump people that worked extensively in the immigration service in his last term. One guy's name is Joe Edlow. Joe was actually acting head of immigration at one point, and the other guy's name is John Zadrozny. Both of them are true believers in Trump. Now, this is USCIS. These are the affirmative visa people. So one immediate change, we'll see they have to be confirmed first, but some immediate changes within January, February, March that we'll see. We'll go back to interviewing everybody that's getting a green card. Everybody getting a green card will be interviewed. Trump started that. Biden kind of ended it. It'll go back. This includes every employment-based case. Everybody gets interviewed. Now, when you do that, Nipasa, and you don't
Mhm.
hire more people, what happens?
It's-
It just gets
Yes,
longer and
how will it
longer and
function?
longer and longer and longer and longer. That's what leads to 2 and 3 year adjustment of status. Because we've had a lot of clients get approved in the last couple of years on, let's say, an I-140 is approved, file an adjustment. Boom, it's approved in 30, 60, 90 days. Those days are over. They're gone. That's one policy. The other thing that we will see is some changes proposed to the H-1B. We talked about the fee rule, but Biden just changed the definition of specialty occupation, how to prove specialty occupation, and who doesn't qualify for an H-1B. So a BCom no longer is an H-1B. A degree, a bachelor's degree in business is now not a specialty occupation. You need something very much more specific for H-1Bs. Trump will take that to the next level as part of this application. So we're going to see a lot longer visa processing times within the USCIS, and we're going to see a lot more green card processing times. The other thing they're going to do, and this is truly tad, when Biden took over and Urchanu became USCIS director, she let us know that immigration was only staffed at 60% of what they needed to do the work that they had. They were 40% understaffed. So they literally last month finally got fully staffed. What these guys are going to do is shrink that workforce. Again, if you have fewer people adjudicating cases and you have the same number or more cases, it's going to take longer. And so we're going to see these really long visa processing times just to get an H-1B approved, which means a lot more people will pay, when available, premium processing. So immigration will make more money by being incompetent. It's a great deal if you can get it. So those are some of the big impacts we will see. We're also going to see, like on L visas, an even more tightening up of what a manager executive is. We're going to see a tightening up on O's and extraordinary ability. And I think Trump may end the Biden policy on national interest waivers and make those as hard as they were back in the day. Because national waivers become very easy in the last several years with the Biden policy. And that's a policy. That's literally a day one. I dismiss this order. I cancel it. It's gone. Boom. Overnight, you have a pending case that would have been approved, now gets denied. So if listeners have an NIW pending, they should be premium processing that, because you don't want that still pending when Trump's president.
Yes, and you still got exactly 1 month, you can say, for that. So as soon as possible, get things done. Yeah.
31 days and Trump is president.
Yes, yes. And well, about the H-1B new regulations also, we hear a lot of changes coming in. So do you think that is also going to affect, or it's going to be great during Trump's reign?
Well, the ironic part of these new regulations on H-1Bs is that some of them are proposals made by Trump, like the tightening up of specialty occupation. If anybody goes on Twitter, there's a lot of hate towards H-1Bs. I mean, a lot of hate towards H-1Bs. And as a result, Trump hears this, his minions see it, and they say, what can we do to limit? I mean, they can't eliminate H-1Bs. They can't do that, but they can make them a lot harder to get. And a lot of the complaint, of course, is that job shops use these. Now, if you go back and look at the biggest users of H-1Bs last year, there's only like one job shop on them. There's only one outsource. I mean, the rest are like Amazon's the number one user, Microsoft, Tesla is up there in the top 10. So it's not that there's a lot of outsourcing jobs here. And that's, of course, you hear from is Americans who were laid off. So as an Indian H-1B engineer making $60,000 can do his job. Well, if you're doing a job that somebody else with a less education and experience can do, then you need a different job. I mean, then you're in the wrong job. So it's there's going to be a lot of pushback on these H-1Bs. There's not going to be, I don't see any litigation possible on these new regulations. They're well within the authority of the Immigration Service to issue. None of them are truly outrageous. And there are a couple good things in there. For example, if you were previously approved for the same job with the same employer, they're basically going to approve the extension. There's going to be a deference policy. Anything changes, no deference, but deference is a really, really important thing. So that's how I see those H-1B rules shaking out. We have to modify how we do a couple things internally at the firm, but for the most part, it's going to be business as usual on H-1Bs that we do.
Okay. Now coming back to more questions, let's talk about Vivek Ramaswamy, advocating for merit-based system. So how do you anticipate his policies will reshape employment-based immigration categories or even family-sponsored visa programs?
Well, the good news is that Vivek Ramaswamy has no power over immigration. And there can be no merit-based system or point system unless Congress gets involved. Congress has to change our law. Vivek Ramaswamy can't change our laws. The irony is, of course, his parents were H-1B visa holders, right? And would his dad have come under the new regulations? That's a good question. I don't know. Maybe he would have, maybe he wouldn't have. If Ramaswamy and Musk are examples of close the door behind me, I'm here kind of immigrants, the kind I truly detest, people that don't want others to have the same opportunity that we did. America is a big country. It's a big country. I mean, it's not India. It's only a fifth the size of India, right? But physically, it's a big country. Economic power. There is room for hundreds of millions of more people. There is. And there's the opportunity. When we bring an H-1B immigrant in, on average, they create 4 to 5 jobs for Americans. On average, they create jobs. H-1B immigrants are job creators. They're not job takers. And that's true from the janitor or the guy picking your mushrooms or picking your melons in the field to the guy building rockets for SpaceX. We've got room for a lot more people. We're still living, however, under 1990 rules. All these rules we talk about for employment were created in 1990. We were a very different country. Heck, my cell phone in 1990 was in a bag that I carried around that only reached 3 miles. So we live in a very, very different country, and maybe Trump's the guy to fix it. More power to them if he can fix it. I just don't see the level of competence in the administration doing that. And of course, I see a real nativist streak in Stephen Miller and Tom Homan. They don't want more immigrants. They don't. So do Musk and Ramaswamy have the power against Miller and Homan? Well, Miller and Homan are sitting in the White House. Ramaswamy and Musk are too busy down at Mar-a-Lago. So I think the nativists are going to win the day here, and we're going to have to wait till 2029 to fix stuff again. That's my prediction.
Logical, very much. Thank you so much. Now let's go on. So, do you anticipate any changes in approach to also family-sponsored immigration categories? F1, F3, F4 visa categories under Trump.
You left out F2. Again, we've had extra employment-based visas for several years because the consulates who do most of these are under the consulates were slow. So I suspect that there will be a slowdown in visa processing. Heck, the Muslim ban that he's going to put back in place, there will be a Muslim ban. It'll be broader than before. That will slow down massive family-based immigration, which means there'll be more employment-based visas in fiscal year 2026 is my guess. So yeah, it'll be a slowdown. He can't deny the visas. I mean, the visas are the visas. But I also see him bringing back a new the what's called the affidavit of support rule, the public benefits rule, and making it much harder for people to come in who are poor, whose families aren't wealthy. I see them bringing that back. That's going to be quite a fight, as I can tell you.
Okay, thank you for that. I think we should quickly take up RK's question on YouTube before we head on with more questions from us.
There's a lot of great questions here.
Yeah. Do you think for H-1B wage base, it would be the highest wage per occupation? And that means if you're the highest paid for your occupation, you're eligible for the lottery, regardless another occupation.
No, it will be the highest wage. So you're at Apple and you're getting paid $395,000 a year. You're getting an H-1B. You're working as a software engineer at Bob's muffler shop, and you're making $40,000. You're not getting it. This is not across teachers, software engineers, doctors. No, the highest wages. That's what is going to happen. That's what they want to see.
Okay,
it's a great question. I like it, but it's not going to happen.
There's another one that follows. Example, highest paid teacher. Okay, you've already explained. Okay, let's take up.
Ankit has a great question.
Who?
Ankit's got a great question there. 123505.
Hello,
and not
Charles,
because
sir.
he said our show was amazing.
Yes, he says. So glad, Ankit, you've been following. And he's saying, I also want to ask that the RFE ask for additional evidence to prove that my job qualities as a specialty occupation. What kind of
Well,
documentation should I submit to demonstrate that position requires bachelor's degree or higher?
Well, you shouldn't be filing it. Your lawyer should be filing it. Basically, you're going to start with the Occupational Outlook Handbook, which describes every job in America and what the educational requirements are. You're next going to look at advertisements for that job from other employers. What do other employers say is required for that particular position? And remember, it's not that a bachelor's degree or higher is required. Under the new rules, it's a specific bachelor's degree is required. So they're saying that jobs like systems analyst no longer requires a degree because I can teach somebody to do that in a week. I don't need anybody to do that. So a lot of H-1Bs are going to lose their H-1B when they renew because of this. So you're going to look at what is generally required in the industry. You're going to look at what the academics say the requirements are. You get letters from experts that say a bachelor's degree is required for this job. You get a very detailed letter from the employer explaining why a bachelor's degree, you have to take these classes in order to understand how this widget works. So all those things have to be part, and that's why H-1Bs are going to get a lot more expensive because it's going to get a lot harder to do this.
Right. Thank you so
At
much,
least for
Ankit.
some
I hope
jobs.
this
At
brought
least for some jobs. I mean, I'm filing an H-1B for a lawyer. That's easy, right? Requires a JD. Thank you very much. Boom.
So I think he will need an evaluation as well, right? For
Well,
his.
the evaluations are done for the individual. Do they qualify for the job? You want to get an expert opinion that says this job at this company and in this industry, this requires a degree. And here's how I know, because I've been teaching this subject at Harvard for the last 30 years and blah, 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 blah. That's what you kind of need. And again, you're going to pay
Okay.
those guys. So H-1Bs are going to get more expensive.
Mhm. Okay, let's take up Rogers now. This is from LinkedIn. Feliz Navidad, guys. Well, Merry Christmas to you too, Roger, and to your family. And he says he has a question. I have a green card that got expired when I was 11 years old. Is it possible to renew it even though it passed 30 years since then?
Well, it's a question. Roger, are you in the United States? If you're in the United States, that green card's still valid. I assume it's a pink one. It should be a pink one, or maybe even it's probably not a green one, but it's probably a pink one with no expiration date. If you've been in the U.S. the whole time, the card is fine. If you've been out of the country, that card's expired, right? That card's done because if you're out of the country for more than a year, you abandon your residence. But if you've been in the United States, you can just file a renewal. Just file a 990 and get a new card. Piece of cake.
Even though it
Better
was
question:
30
if
years
you're in the United States, why haven't you naturalized?
Roger, tell us more about yourself. Which is the one you have? Which color is it? Pink or green? And yeah, why have you not naturalized if you're still in the US? All right, cool. So let's take up Tamara's question now. I have sent my RFE response for STEM approval to USCIS. It is reflecting as received on portal. How long does it take to get an update? And in scenario where it gets denied, what options does Tamara have?
Generally, it takes 30 days or less on a STEM OPT extension. Gets denied, you will have 60 days to leave the United States. Or change status to a visitor or go back to school. Those will be your options.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for taking that up for Tamara. And let's go on to one more. Let's take Chandra's question. My employer is a small business and doesn't have the same resource as large companies. How can we prove that they have the ability to pay my salary and fulfill the job requirements for the H-1B?
So we just had it. We just won an RFE on this issue that another lawyer had lost, and we actually did a motion to reopen and won it. You start with the employer's tax returns. So is the amount of money they claimed as taxable profit for the business, is that more than your salary? If so, you're fine. If you were already working there under OPT and you're getting paid the salary, you show your pay stubs as part of it. You also look at the person's tax return, company's tax returns. Do they have assets? Do they have carry forward profits? All those things are part of the consideration and are very case specific. So, if you've got that and you're an RFE and your lawyer's not handling it right, just give us a call. We're happy to help. I'm very proud of my partner, Danielle Claffey. She just won. There's a fellow who used to be an H-1B worker, a fellow from India at a state agency. And there was some weird stuff going on where he was blamed for something that wasn't his fault. And he went to a different employer and he ultimately got his I-140, became current, filed, and immigration denied it because they said he did something bad at his employer. And he came to us, and it's taken us a year, and we had to file litigation in federal court. But yesterday, he got his green card. They reopened the case and gave it to him. So fighting hard is worth it most times, because immigration makes mistakes and presumes the worst of immigrants all the time. They presume the worst.
All the time, yes. But yes, kudos to you, your team, and Danielle out there. A big shout out. And folks out there, you
He's a
can
rock star.
contact, yes, you can contact Charles Kuck, have a one-on-one consultation. And you can call him up on his number. His number is 404 949 8154. Let me repeat that: 404 949 8154.
But don't
And his
call
email
now.
address is
Don't call now. I'm on the show.
right after the show, maybe. But yes, you can even email Chuck, and his email address is chuck@immigration.net. And go visit www.immigration.net to get to know more about Charles Kuck. Thank you so much. And let's go on now, Charles, to my next question. I have this, and that is: the Trump 2025 team really appears to blend restrictive and reformative voices. So how might their combined influence impact DACA, and other programs supporting undocumented youth?
I'm glad you asked about DACA. DACA is kind of apart from what Trump has done and will do going forward. The DACA has a strange history. Started by Obama. Trump ended it in September 2017. At least he thought he did. But litigation was filed because Trump ended it wrong. He was required to follow the Administrative Procedures Act, and he didn't. And they're just obstinate. They just never did it. So litigation kept on going, and you couldn't file a new DACA, but you could keep extending your DACA. Biden comes along and says, "Oh, we're going to do it the right way." Biden extends DACA. And then a court says, "Yeah, you extended it the right way, but we don't think you have the power to do it." So the court ended it, but said, "Yeah, they can keep extending people with DACA." It's about 500,000 people. Now there's been argument on appeal of that decision at the Court of Appeals. They'll make a decision probably before Trump comes into office saying DACA is illegal, but then it will be appealed to the Supreme Court. And during this time, DACA will continue. In order for Trump to cancel it, he has to go through this same process that he didn't go through before, but which Biden did, and it takes a year. So DACA is not going away. DACA is going to be around for the next year and a half. Supreme Court won't even hear the case until 2026. What we're telling people, my advice, we have thousands of DACA clients, is if you have DACA and it expires in 2025, you should be filing your extension today. File your extension today to get that extra time, that extra year on the back end, year and a half, 18 months on that back end, because this way you're good till 2027, and you don't know what's going to happen in 2027. So that's kind of where we are with DACA, but Congress isn't going to touch it. Trump spoke approvingly of it in an interview on Meet the Press a couple weeks ago, but Stephen Miller runs immigration. He hates DACA. So it's not going to get approved. Congress isn't going to do anything. The best we can do is fight to keep it where we're at.
Okay. Thank you so much for, for the detailed explanation. And yes, I have one more. And that is, with Trump's renewed push to end birthright citizenship, through executive action, how feasible do you think it is going to be under constitutional law? And what challenges might arise if his administration attempts to implement such a policy?
I was talking to a friend of mine at the ACLU, which is the American Civil Liberties Union, about this, and they already have the litigation ready to go. Trump will issue an executive order on day one that says anybody born in the United States whose parents weren't citizens or permanent residents are not citizens. By the way, this includes children of H-1B visa holders, by the way, are not citizens. And he will order the Department of State not to issue passports. He will order immigration not to approve petitions. And it will be immediately challenged in federal court. It will be immediately struck down because it is contrary to the plain language of the 14th Amendment, which says that any person born in the United States, subject to the jurisdiction or thereof, which means not diplomats. Diplomats' kids are residents; they're not citizens, and that's been interpreted this way for 150 years. There's the seminal case on this is Kim Wong Ark from 1898, who Kim Wong Ark was a Chinese born person, a U.S. born person whose parents were residents. That is, they were physically in the United States. We didn't have permanent resident back then. They said, look, he was here. Parents lived here. He's a citizen. Period. End of story. And it's honestly, this is a fringe legal theory that it shocks me that anybody with a soul would agree is a good idea. We fought a civil war over whether somebody born here was a citizen. And it is outrageous that in the 21st century, we're having to do it again. Shame on these people. Truly outrageous. But there will be a fight. There will be a fight. That's why I'm telling clients, if you've got a CLID and you're undocumented or you're having a visa and your kid was born here, get their U.S. passport right now. Get it now and avoid the heartache later or the headache later.
That's a good one, and it's a point to be noted, folks out there. And yes, I hope you have been noting good points throughout this whole show, by the way. And going on, so let's take up a few more from our audience before we leave. And I think RK is back with another one asking, will there be legitimation for H1B about contract for bona fide job at the time of filing? And what is the difference from what is happening now?
Well, you will, under the new rules, the if there's a third party site that they're working at, that third party site will be viewed as kind of a co-employer and will be required to comply with all the rules on H-1Bs, including posting, et cetera, and wage. It's going to make it a lot harder on these companies. It's designed to make it harder on these companies to do the H-1Bs. So yeah, it's going to be much harder. I'm glad I don't have any clients like that. All my clients are direct hires.
But thank you so much for taking that up for RK. And RK, thank you for participating. I wish you could join us on call. I mean, anybody could join us on call. So I'm really looking forward. But yeah, let's go on to Ajay's question. In the RFE, they've asked for more evidence about my employer's ability to pay the prevailing wage. What kind of financial documents can we submit to address this concern?
We already talked about this. This is a question I answered before. Tax
Similar one,
returns,
like, yeah.
things like that. So I think it looked like the same one, but tax returns, analysis of tax returns, profit from the previous year, current employment with the company, assets the company has that they could liquidate. All those. If it's a closely held company, you can look at if it's an individual. We had one recently. We won where it was an accounting firm, and basically it was a sole proprietorship. So we used the sole proprietor's income to show that he could afford to pay somebody to do that job. And it explained that now that they won't have to do it, so they'll make more money. So it's kind of again, requires a level of skill that you get when you've been practicing law for 40 years that you don't get with a brand new lawyer.
Mhm. All right, all right. Thank you so much for taking that up. And let's talk about Elon Musk's, given that his influence on the technology sector, how do you think his involvement in the administration is going to affect policies on high-skilled immigration visas, whether it's H-1B or STEM-related pathways?
He will be the contrary to voice to Stephen Miller, telling Trump, don't cut out STEM, don't cut out H-1Bs, don't do this stuff. But Stephen Miller is going to win that argument. Just is. You have to understand that. Stephen Miller is like a son to Donald Trump, an evil son, but a son nonetheless. Musk will quickly lose focus, and he'll go on to the next thing. But while President Musk is still around, I guess we'll see what he does. But again, I don't see him really affecting policy in a positive way. I don't see it. He's a chaos agent. That's what he is.
Okay, let's see what's going to happen. But I know what you mean. I think it's always most of the time contradicting with many others in Trump's team, right? So let's see what happens.
Absolutely
So
true.
what legal challenges? Sorry.
I just said true. It's absolutely true.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what legal challenges do you see if Trump seeks to implement similar policies as before? We've been speaking that it's going to happen nonetheless. So, with regard to existing federal court rulings against such measures if you can just
Well,
tell us about.
actually, we're kind of. I mean, I litigate a lot. I was a part of a number of teams that litigated last Trump administration. There's a recent Supreme Court case that makes our litigation easier. There used to be a Supreme Court case that said that if an agency makes a policy, that the court should give deference. Should say, you're the experts. I'm not. I'm going to uphold it. That was overturned last term by the Supreme Court. So it is now much easier to challenge policies of the federal government. And I'm actually looking forward to litigating in this context because I think you have to understand, we won virtually every case filed against Trump. Virtually every case we won. And I would say of the 300 cases we filed when he was president, I think we won 299 of them. We won almost all of them. We will win all of them next time. Because while these guys are, these nativists have a vision of the way they want America to be, our laws don't let them do it. And so we will bring declaratory judgment actions, challenges under the Administrative Procedures Act, and for delayed cases, mandamus cases, and we will win them.
Yes.
And nothing's better than beating Trump at court. Nothing's better.
Okay. Looking forward for a lot happening in 2025 is all I can say. So, how do you expect, the potential for litigation to evolve with regard to Trump's immigration policies, especially if they are perceived to be restrictive or discriminatory?
As I said, litigation is going to be awesome. We'll be litigating all these issues. It will not, what's one thing about Trump that's happened that's really important is he's created a cadre of immigration litigators that it used to be like 5 of us in the whole country that litigated these cases. There's hundreds now, hundreds of experienced, qualified litigators. We're going to bury these people in lawsuits. We're going to become the sand in the gears to slow down the deportation machine. And we're going to do that under the law because we're going to make them follow every jot and tittle that exists in the law to protect immigrants in the United States.
For sure. All right. So, I think I have a few more questions. But before that, we should address one more from the audience. Sudhir. All right, so let's take up this last one then I have, and that is, what strategies can immigrants and their families employ to navigate any changes or uncertainties that might arise under Trump 2025 administration?
Well, don't be traveling outside the United States if you're from a Muslim majority country on January 20th. If you're from a Muslim majority country, you should be in the United States on January 20th if you want to come here next year, because that's going to be litigation. If you got kids born here, get them passports. If you are in the United States on a visa, make sure you're meticulous in making sure that visa is extended early at the 6-month mark to make sure you're always in status. Make sure all the lights work in your car so you don't get pulled over for a reason that cops make up that your lights are out. Simply live a perfect life, because that's what the Trump administration will want you to do to avoid you being deported. You don't want to end up in an immigration jail cell. That is a really depressing note to end on, isn't it? And be happy, because people like me fighting for you.
For sure, yes. And you can find Trump's telephone number scrolling on the screen, 404-949-8154. And you can email Chuck at chuck@immigration.net. So, folks out there, I think it's a wrap for now. I'm so excited that the holidays are coming up. It's the Christmas season. So, here's wishing you, Charles, and your family out there a Merry Christmas and, of course, a great end to 2024. And also to our viewers, if you have anything to say before we go, Charles.
Oh, well, again, we want to wish everybody an extraordinary Christmas season. It is a great time of year to remember the great blessings that we have with our family and our friends. Enjoy this time together and be prepared in a week, in 10 days, to begin the fight again. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you so much, Charles, for that very sweet message. And here's saying bye for now. And I'm hoping to see you in 2025. And I think by then there'll be so much happening. So there'll be a lot to talk about.
That
So
there
I'm
will.
looking forward for it already.
Have a happy holiday. Bye-bye.
Happy holidays. Bye bye. So thank you so much, everyone out there, for joining us today. It was great having you. Please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. We are on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and on X. And also, you can call me, write to me if you have any queries, and we can direct your questions to our attorneys. And my number is 408-335-6444. And you can also email me. My email address is nipa@staffingly.com. Thank you so much, everyone, and stay back. Watch out, Immigration and Jobs Talk Show, because we have so much awesome content that we have shared with you and a lot more coming up. Bye bye for now.